Yeah, just to jump right in, there's been a ton of stuff going on. A lot of my time's been focused on helping the different subnets get all onboarded. Kyle's been doing an awesome job as the maintainer, leading that effort. He's brought on the folks from Telnex and Titans Online, and there's a bunch others like SETI and those that have been integrating, Akash and Hyperbolic. So I think there's already 3 or 4 subnets now that have more than 10,000 more, delegated or staked, towards them. Right now, you have to do that in the smart contract, and there's a guide on GitHub, but it's actually, gonna have a nice dashboard fairly soon. I know the open source developers are working on that, and so it's gonna make it a lot easier to just basically push a button, pick a subnet off a list that you want to support, and delegate your more towards them, and start earning some more on more rewards. So yeah, but yeah, that's a big deal. I can see the sessions going on. I can see people earning more rewards for providing inference. And yeah, as more and more groups on board, I think we'll get a lot of usage. I was over at the DCG summit just I think last week, and they brought in a ton of decentralized AI people this time. They have an annual summit for the digital currency group, which is like Foundry and a lot of the other big players in the space that provide compute to a lot of the GPU and decentralized networks. And yeah, they had Akash and Morpheus and people from Venice all there, as well as made a bunch of big announcements about supporting, um, you know, different subnets on BitTensor. So they're launching an entire dedicated project called Yuma, which is named after the consensus mechanism in BitTensor to support different subnets. So yeah, very friendly to everything that's get built in Morpheus, and it was really cool to sort of see in person a lot of those folks building the different aspects. So yeah, just a lot going on between the compute launch. Also went over to the Llama hackathon, which was great. Rukshuk, one of the code maintainers for Morpheus for the smart agents, was one of the judges, and a bunch of other Morpheus contributors flew into town. And yeah, hundreds of developers converged for the hackathon and just spent the whole weekend building on open source models, tweaking them, building products on top of them, playing around with agents. And then at the end, Akash handed out a bunch of compute and rewards to a bunch of the hackathon winners. So yeah, I mean, it's just really cool to see how it's gone mainstream. This idea of open source, decentralized AI, and to get support from large companies like Meta. They literally hosted the kickoff at their office in Austin, and I posted some pictures to the community. And then at Capital Factory, they held the hackathon through the weekend. But yeah, I mean, just the momentum that's building right now is crazy. So I know a lot of people are traveling for the holiday. So I'll give a quick update. I know Luke just did another video, which is great, about how to get rewards as a refer. And that sort of opens up so much opportunity for people that want to bring depositors of staked ETH and capital contributors into the community and get rewarded for doing it. So I see OGs like Colbert and Eric from Malaysia, as well as Renee, all tweeting about how they're building in the Morpheus community and how people can use their referral link. And they've launched, I think, an entire website for Morpheus.asia. So yeah, just like a huge influx of people already using the referral system, and now there's a really easy to use dashboard. So if you haven't checked out Luke's video, it's definitely worth checking out, because I think that'll make it easy for more and more people to get involved and support Morpheus through Capital. But let's see other updates. I already talked about Kyle and his work on the subnets. You know, so shout out to all those guys for the great work. But Bo, you want to bring us up to speed on integrations? I know you've been doing a ton of stuff on that.
Yeah, can I ask two questions really quick, David? Kind
Yeah,
of just that I know I have been curious about in the past, so I have a feeling others in the community are as well from a compute perspective.
sure.
So the first being, do you know, like, are there plans in building taking place to allow for individual compute providers to plug into subnets in the same way that there's like Bitcoin mining pools, where you might not yourself be a subnet, but you can provide compute to a subnet, which ultimately will allow you to earn like a pro rata share of what they're doing?
That's a really good question. I don't think there's any technical reason that that could not be done. And I know, for example, Kyle's been doing great work to hook in, the APIs from Akash and from Hyperbolic. So, I mean, that already demonstrates you can take an external provider of compute, right, from like an Akash network or Hyperbolic, and plug it into a Morpheus subnet and go through the router, right? So, thinking of it from a technical perspective, I don't think that, an individual provider, whether you're using Akash or some other tech stack, would be any different, right? And so that's a cool question because, then you can accumulate compute towards a subnet the same way you can accumulate more towards a subnet. And that's one of the things, like I mentioned, the developers are working on right now is a dashboard where anybody's going to be able to, delegate their more towards a subnet and start earning more on more rewards, right? And right now you can do that in the smart contract, and there's a guide, credit to Anton for his great work on that. But having a dashboard makes it a lot easier. But that's a good question. I don't think there should be a blocker to that, and I'll certainly let Kyle respond to it. In Discord when he gets online. But yeah, that's a good point. If you've got hardware and you want to work with a subnet, I think it may be up to the subnets to create that process by which people can apply and try to join a subnet. Obviously they need to show they have high uptime and good equipment and stuff like that. But it's a really good point. It would be it'd be really beneficial. The more people can provide compute, the more people can participate, obviously the better, because it builds a more robust network and distributes the tokens even further into the community. But
Yeah,
that's
and I
that's a great
I totally
question.
agree, and I know, like, speaking for myself, like, if I had the ability to do that today, I would.
Right.
Where, like, I don't currently have the resources for an individualized subnet, but and even just talking to other people in the community in Discord, I do think there'd be a lot of demand for something like that, so I will definitely connect with Kyle on that. Um, on the integration side, so yeah, it was a busy week, despite the holiday. I know, David, you were on a handful of the conversations with me, a couple of them being with Chainlink. So we continue to discuss price data feed with them. There's a couple benchmarks we need to get to as a community and as a project in order for that to really become a reality and make sense. The largest hurdle being $3 million in daily exchange volume across all exchanges. We're not quite there yet. I think, and you and I talked about this, that through continued development and continued utility, that will happen, and it will happen likely not just due to people speculating on token price, but more so based on the actual utility of the token itself, which is a great thing. That's a super healthy thing for the project. The other boxes we do kind of check currently as far as number of exchange listings and not having an extremely high concentration of liquidity. So that in due time will become a reality, and once it does, it'll really unlock some avenues for DeFi protocols and integrations on that end. To that same point with oracles, I do have a call coming up with Redstone, who is a blockchain oracle provider. That's going to be this week to discuss what their data price feeds look like, and maybe maybe they have different requirements than Chainlink does. I don't know yet, but I'm working on figuring that out and kind of trying to attack it from multiple angles. We also discussed with Chainlink their CCIP cross-chain interoperability protocol, which David currently shared our token contracts that we have with Wormhole over to Chainlink to do a brief review and see if there's anything we need to update to go ahead and integrate with their CCIP as well. I had a call with X Labs earlier this week, who does a lot of work with Wormhole, and we were discussing cross-chain operability for the More token and what a future with Solana integrations will look like. Still looking for a Rust dev who's very interested in helping us to take this on, which would be great. Um, they were also X Labs was also interested in exploring builder opportunities in the agent building space. So I know they're going to be connecting with Kevin here relatively soon too. And then I had a couple conversations with some exchanges, a little back and forth with Camelot Exchange via Discord, and then I have an upcoming call with Rango as well to discuss, what we're building here. I think just the more on the exchange front, the more conversations we can have with people to help them understand what it really means to be a true fair launch in the way that we are and what we're really building is helpful. Um, I've had a few message me privately on like Telegram and a couple of them, and I'm not going to name any names on this end just because you'll understand why in a second, but a couple of them have reached out trying to see, can we do a paid opportunity where you pay us for a listing, where you do this? And I keep reminding them we don't have that. That's not a thing. There's no VC funding. There is no treasury that's governance ran. It is all fair launch. Everyone who holds more tokens earn them through one of the defined ways within the protocol. And so it's definitely going to be somewhat unique process to get listed, but I know that in due time it'll happen. And I think as these other groups and projects and businesses ultimately come to really understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, they will want us to be there. It won't just be, us saying, hey, you should list our token. They will be going out of their way to list our token. So exciting stuff coming for sure.
Very cool. Thanks for the updates. Yeah, no, it's cool to have that conversation with Chainlink about the CCIP. We've already got Wormhole and Layer Zero both worked with the open source devs to add both of those interoperability messaging standards to the Morpheus smart contracts. So, we've got some pretty good coverage with that, but it sounds like there's a bunch of other decentralized protocols that use CCIP. So it may be worth adding that as a third option. And Morpheus is agnostic, right? It shouldn't be in the business of deciding defaults, right? Anybody can use any model, any agent, any messaging layer they want. And so, if it's valuable and it adds additional interoperability for the project, then it's definitely something that should be explored. Yeah, I mean, just to echo your same comments, I don't really think you know the messages you get on Telegram about listings normally they're scams, and even the ones that are real are normally predatory, which is like
Yeah.
they want a big fee or a market maker. Like Morpheus just doesn't play that game. Like we're gonna build organic, real volumes of trading from our own community. We're starting on dexes. It is cool to see Coinex has listed Morpheus, and they just did that of their own volition, and that's an exchange that's been around forever. So might be worth highlighting that to the community that there is a centralized exchange now. I see them listed in the CoinGecko list of markets for the More token, and seems to have relatively same volume as like a Uniswap or Aerodrome does for Morpheus. But I can see the volumes have been growing. It's been like 150, $180,000 pretty much every day the last week or so. And so, yeah, we'll get there on the volumes. It's interesting to hear that Chainlink is releasing that other product that looks at DEX depth, right, as an alternative to daily volume. But it sounds like that's something that's pretty new and, will come out potentially next month. But even so, most people won't have it integrated. So it's probably better to go through the traditional route of having the 3 million in daily volume and go through that integration as something that's, very well established. And Chainlink is by far the number one oracle in the space used by most of the DeFi protocols. So appreciate you following up on that. But the nice thing about a permissionless protocol is like as soon as we hit those benchmarks, we should be good to do the integration, right? There's no application or politics or bureaucracy. You just kind of got to go through the process for integrating into Chainlink as long as you meet the benchmarks. and then for CCIP. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I
both
think the politicking will come more into place on the lending protocol side for some of the larger protocols because a lot of them do have very formalized, basically governance application processes in place. But yes, no, totally. We're making moves, and we have the huge benefit of our token does something, which is a huge benefit, and will drive volumes far into the future.
Sure. Well, and it's so cool to see projects in the ecosystem like Venice. They're north of 300,000 users now. And it sounds like that's 100,000 daily active users, right? How amazingly sticky is that use case if like people are coming back literally every day to use it, right? I know I've basically just canceled ChatGPT. I both basically don't use Google anymore. I just use Venice, right? Because it gives me great results. It always works, right? It doesn't, treat me like a child or censor the outputs or anything. And so, yeah, it's so cool to see that. And I know they're, give them credit. They're doing their test net right now on the Morpheus compute. So I think everybody's excited to see that get across the line and move into production when they're fully onboarded. But that's the demand driver, right? Is real
That was
usage of a real
the
problem.
second question. That was the second question I was going to ask you. I said I had two before, and I only asked the one. That was the
Sure.
second one. It was going to be if we had any word on Venice as a front end plugging in with Morpheus Compute on the back end. But okay, cool. Yeah, it's in production. That's awesome.
Well, they've been in the test net. That's sort of where it's at right now. They've been great. They've dedicated an entire full time resource to the Morpheus integration. You know, um, totally respect their process of testing and making sure the privacy is all on point. And there's great infrastructure that's come online lately. Shout out to Fala and what they've done with H100s and the TEE, which does the encryption on the chip, and be able to prove that provenance of the encryption all the way back to the person sending the prompts, right? To the developer that's using that instance of the H100. NVIDIA has a public registry of public keys connected to those hardware chips, right? And so between Phala, Phala, if you haven't looked at them, they're booting up a subnet right now, and them and the NVIDIA registry and going through the whole encryption process. Kyle's really been running those privacy aspects to ground, but that's what you want, right? Is to show not just like the prompts are all being mixed together and you can't connect them to identities. Even better is if you can show that the prompts going all the way into the chip are encrypted, only seen inside the chip, but that doesn't leak any information to the outside. Right, that's like the gold standard that everybody wants to get to. And so for Morpheus, for Venice, for all the people in the ecosystem, as more and more chips get released that have that TEE support, right? H100s are the first. But the more that happens, the better the privacy architecture is going to be. So yeah, I'll let Kyle speak to it more next time he jumps on, potentially next week when he's back from the holiday. But yeah, he's been really sort of running all those privacy aspects to ground. But yeah, we're all excited to obviously see Venice move from testnet to production. But those are the major milestones you want to see now that the compute rewards are live. Now the subnets are live. Now that there's plenty of inference available. Okay, make sure to check the box on privacy and go from there. But good question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all I had. I'm just very excited for all of it. I think having a something on my phone that I can show people in real time, hey, look, this is Morpheus Compute, is going to be so awesome.
Yep, 100%. Venice is easy to use and touch and show off. And it's that application layer, right? So yeah, big credit to Eric and Tina and all the folks over there that have really built out such a beautiful interface, right? And are out there sort of evangelizing decentralized AI day in and day out to a huge crowd of people. So yeah, well, if you don't have any more integration stuff, I think we talked about Luke's update. We talked about Kyle's work on the subnets. Kevin continues to work on the Morpheus Accelerator, came into Austin for the Llama Hackathon, met with a bunch of the other co-contributors to Morpheus. As well, we got another chance to spend time at the new decentralized AI office that Akash and Manifold, one of the BitTensor subnets, are opening up. And Morpheus is right in there working to bring in decentralized AI projects. So this, I don't know if you saw the announcement, but on December 5th, they're going to do the official kickoff, like opening party for 12,000 square foot space in downtown Austin, all for decentralized AI projects. And so you've got, some of the co-founders of BitTensor and Akash, big contributors to Morpheus, all these projects working on decentralized AI in the same space. It's really going to be cool to get to work with builders and, hack on stuff day in and day out. So as far as I'm aware, it's like the first physical space dedicated to decentralized AI and projects building in there. So yeah, it's gonna be cool. And then they mentioned doing like a big kickoff in January after
What is
this
that called, David?
the DAI space.
The AI space. Okay, cool.
EEAI space, and I think it was Greg from Akash that tweeted about doing the kickoff on August 5th and kind of opening the space, and then I think they're going to do a bigger, more formal event in January. And if anybody doesn't have it on their calendar, start putting April on your calendar. BitTensor is having their first conference, Endgame, in April in Austin. And Akash is talking about doing an event in April. Morpheus community is talking about doing the More Builders event at the same time. Deus and a bunch of the other players in decentralized AI, I think, are all going to converge because you don't have consensus this year in Austin. The convention center is under renovation, so they're in like Toronto or something in May for consensus. So, but normally people have that slot in like April, May to visit Austin. So we're just going to basically do an entire decentralized AI week and have all these DAI conferences at the same time. So most of the decentralized AI events have been around other big conferences, but this would be like the first dedicated time for everybody in the community to come together. And like that's the perfect time for anybody building a compute subnet or who is a capital contributor or who is writing and publishing code on Morpheus and reference implementation, or an agent builder, right? Building smart agents, that's the time for everybody to converge and come together. So more details to be released. Endgame doesn't have an official date yet, but hopefully everything will kind of converge on about the same week. So everybody can come in and participate in all of those events. Cool. Well, yeah, let's wrap it there. But we can publish this recording out to the community and kind of go from there. But catch everybody after the holidays. Good to see you, Bo.
Yep, you as well. Thanks, David.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye.